The gavel cracked like a gunshot in the stale air of the Manhattan law office, and Elijah's voice, scratchy from years of chain-smoking Marlboros, echoed from beyond the grave. To my son, Brandon, I leave $1. For being gay. Laughter rippled through the room like poison gas. His sister's manicured hands flying to their mouths in mock horror, while Uncle Ray choked on his coffee, sputtering. That old bastard went out swinging. Brandon froze in the oak-paneled conference room, the city skyline mocking him through the floor-to-ceiling windows, his heart slamming against ribs that felt like they might splinter. He was 32, dressed in the black suit he'd worn to his mother's funeral 5 years back. And now this, reduced to a punchline in a will reading that smelled of leather and regret. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Elijah Harper, the rough-hewn king of Brooklyn brownstones who'd clawed his way from a Hell's Kitchen tenement to owning half the warehouses along the East River, had always been a storm cloud of a man, booming laughs 1 minute, fists clenched the next. But to Brandon, he'd been the anchor in choppy waters, the one who'd taught him to parallel park on Flatbush Avenue at 16, who'd snuck him into smoky jazz clubs on Bleecker Street when he came out at 17. "You're my boy," Elijah would growl, clapping a calloused hand on Brandon's shoulder, eyes crinkling like weathered leather. No one else knew the depth of it. No one saw the late-night confessions over whiskey in the den. The way Elijah's gaze lingered just a beat too long, heavy with unspoken storms. The lawyer, a slick Ivy Leaguer named Hargrove with a tie that screamed old money, cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Harper recorded a video addendum for each beneficiary. Brandon, yours is private. The rest, well, proceed at your discretion." The room tensed as Hargrove queued up the flat screen on the wall. Elijah's face filled it, larger than life, his silver hair wild, cheeks hollowed from the pancreatic cancer that had eaten him alive in 6 months flat. He looked straight into the camera, that trademark squint narrowing. "Family," he rumbled, voice like gravel under tires. "You vultures circling my corpse, listen up. I've given you the houses, the stocks, the goddamn yacht in the Hamptons. But remember, blood don't mean loyalty. I built this empire with my hands, not your silver spoons." Aunt Lydia, perched like a porcelain vulture in her Chanel suit, shifted uncomfortably, her diamond earrings catching the light. She'd always hated Elijah's blue-collar theatrics, as she called them, preferring charity galas at the Met to his dives into dive bars. Uncle Ray, the family fixer who'd embezzled a cool $1 million from Elijah's accounts last year, thinking his brother wouldn't notice, leaned forward, brow furrowed. The video rolled on, Elijah's words slicing deeper. "To my sisters, you turned your backs when I needed you most. Lydia, you called me a disgrace for not marrying that debutante you picked out. Ray, you think I didn't know about the books? Enjoy the scraps. And the rest of you cousins, in-laws, take your inheritance and choke on the hypocrisy." Brandon's pulse thundered in his ears. He could feel the eyes on him, the whispers starting up again. Poor kid, always the odd one out. Elijah never forgave him for that phase. 20 years of loving a man who'd fathered him in a shotgun wedding gone sour, then spent decades pretending the world was straight as a ruler. Brandon had come out in their cramped Brooklyn row house kitchen, steam rising from a pot of Elijah's famous chili, and his father's response had been a long silence, broken only by, "Pass the salt, son." No hugs, no hellfire, just that quiet acceptance that bloomed into something fiercer over time. Late-night talks about the men Elijah had eyed in the Navy, the crushes buried under layers of machismo. "World ain't kind to fellas like us, Bran," he'd said once, voice low as the Hudson at midnight. "But we endure." The video flickered, Elijah's image softening for a split second, a glitch, or maybe the weight of what came next. "Now, Brandon," he said, and the room went pin-drop silent. "My boy, you think that $1's an insult? It's a promise. Watch yours alone. And remember, love ain't about the ledger." The screen went black, and chaos erupted. Lydia wailed theatrically. "He was deranged at the end. We contest this." Ray pounded the table, red-faced. "That yacht's mine by rights." Hargrove raised his hands like a referee, but Brandon was already slipping out, the $1 bill clutched in his fist like a grenade pin. Outside, the November chill bit into his skin as he hailed a cab on Park Avenue, the city a blur of yellow taxis and suited commuters hustling like ants. "Brooklyn," he muttered to the driver, a grizzled Pakistani guy blasting NPR. The will reading had been a farce from jump, Elijah's empire, pieced together from trucking contracts and real estate flips, doled out like stale bread to relatives who'd barely visited during his chemo. Brandon's share? That $1, crisp and new, folded into his wallet like a scarlet letter. For being gay. The words burned. A betrayal that twisted the knife deeper because it came from the one man who'd made him feel seen. The cab rattled over the Brooklyn Bridge, the East River churning gray below, and Brandon's mind reeled back to the summer of 22, when everything shifted. He'd been 29, fresh off a brutal breakup with his ex, a lithe graphic designer named Theo who'd ghosted him after a weekend in Fire Island. Elijah, sensing the wreckage, had dragged him to their family cabin upstate, a ramshackle A-frame on Lake Placid, surrounded by pines that whispered secrets in the wind. "Time to fish, kid," Elijah had said, tossing him a rod. His own flannel shirt rolled to elbows veined like old rivers. Days blurred into lazy casts and cold beers by the dock, fireflies dancing as the sun dipped low. One night, after too many IPAs, Elijah had cracked open, spilling stories of his own youth, stolen kisses in the back of troop transports, a lover lost to AIDS in the 80s, buried in Potter's Field because no one claimed him. "You're brave, Bran," Elijah had murmured, their shoulders brushing on the sagging porch swing. "Braver than me." The air hummed with crickets, thick with unspoken want, and Brandon had turned, heart hammering, to find his father's eyes, dark pools reflecting the moon, locked on his. The kiss happened like a dam breaking, rough, desperate, Elijah's beard scraping Brandon's jaw as hands fumbled with buttons. It was wrong in all the right ways, father and son, bound by blood and now by fire, collapsing into the queen bed with its faded quilt, bodies tangling in a frenzy of rediscovery. "God, I've wanted this," Elijah gasped, voice breaking as they moved together, the lake lapping outside like applause. It wasn't just sex. It was absolution, a rewriting of the rules in sweat and whispers. "You're mine," Elijah growled, and Brandon believed him, lost in the rhythm of hips and heartbeats. But dawn brought shame's cold fingers. Elijah pulled away, pacing the creaky floorboards, muttering about sins and society. "We can't, Bran. It's poison." They drove home in silence, the Adirondacks fading in the rearview, and Brandon buried the ache, chalking it to booze and vulnerability. Yet the glances lingered after that, across the dinner table, in the garage where Elijah tinkered with his '72 Chevy. Stolen touches. A hand on the small of Brandon's back guiding him through a crowded bodega, fingers brushing in the fridge for a beer. Simmered, this forbidden current, until Elijah's diagnosis hit like a freight train. Stage 4. The oncologist said in that sterile midtown office. And Brandon became nurse, confidant, lover in the shadows, nights when painkillers blurred lines, and they'd cling in the king bed of the brownstone. Elijah's body frail but fierce. Now, as the cab pulled up to the brownstone on Pacific Street, its stoop lined with wilted marigolds, Brandon paid with a 20 and bolted inside. The house smelled of stale coffee and Elijah's Old Spice, ghosts in every corner. He collapsed onto the couch, the dollar trembling in his palm, and fired up his laptop. The video file waited in his inbox, timestamped 2 days before Elijah slipped into the morphine haze. Play, Brandon whispered, and his father's face bloomed on screen, pale, but eyes alight with that old fire. Bran, Elijah started, voice steady despite the oxygen tube snaking under his nose. If you're watching this, I'm gone. And you're hurting. That dollar is not a fuck you. It's the first one I ever earned. Flipping burgers at White Castle in '68. Dreaming of a life bigger than this city could hold. I give it to you because you're the only one who saw me whole. Not the tycoon. Not the drunk dad who forgot soccer games. You, with your artist's hands and your heart too big for your chest. Tears blurred the screen as Elijah leaned closer, the camera catching the glint of a silver chain around his neck, the one Brandon had given him for Father's Day, engraved with always. I lied to you, son. That night at the cabin. It wasn't the beer. It was me, finally admitting what I've carried since you were knee-high. Loving you not just as blood, but as the man who makes my soul breathe. Society says it's wrong. Hell, the Bible thumps it from pulpits. But fuck him. You're my greatest fortune, Bran. The family, they'll fight this will. Call me crazy. Ray's already skimming. Lydia's plotting. Betrayals their love language. But you hold on to us. Find someone who sees you like I do. Live loud. For both of us. The video hitched. Elijah coughing wetly, then smiling through it. One more thing. Check the safe in the study. Combination's your birthday. 93084. It's not money. It's truth. The screen faded to black, and Brandon sat there, chest heaving, the room spinning like a bad trip. Betrayal? Yeah. From the family wolves at the door. But this was redemption, raw and aching. He stumbled to the study, knees weak, dialing the safe with shaking fingers. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, thick as a Bible, and a stack of letters tied with twine, Elijah's handwriting, looping like rivers. The journal's first page. For Brandon, my light in the dark. Pages chronicled it all, the crushes, the regrets, the fire that ignited at the cabin. July 15th, 2022, touched him tonight. Felt like coming home. Brandon's throat closed as he read, the words painting their hidden romance in vivid strokes. Stolen weekends in the Poconos, disguised as father-son bonding, where they'd hike trails hand in hand once the rangers passed, make love in motels with neon signs buzzing like blessings. Elijah's vulnerability spilled out, the fear of losing Brandon to a normal life, the guilt that twisted like barbed wire. I betrayed us by hiding, one entry confessed. But you'd forgive an old fool, wouldn't you? Hours slipped away, the city outside humming oblivious, as Brandon devoured the truths. Dawn crept in, painting the walls gold, when the doorbell shattered the hush. Ray, flanked by a lawyer sharper than a switchblade. We're contesting, kid. Elijah was senile. Videos, journals, fabrications. Brandon stood, journal clutched like a shield, the dollar in his pocket a talisman. Get out, he said, voice steel for the first time. This house is mine now. And so's his story. They left sputtering threats, but Brandon barred the door, sinking to the floor. Elijah's love, taboo, triumphant, washed over him like rain on parched earth. It wasn't the empire that mattered. It was this, the messy, human heart of it. As sirens wailed distant in Brooklyn's veins, Brandon whispered to the empty air, I forgive you, Dad. I love you too. The days blurred into a haze of legal briefs and bitter coffee after the reading. Brooklyn's brownstones standing sentinel like judgmental ants as Brandon fortified the house against the siege. Ray's contest hit the courts faster than a subway express. Headlines in the Post screaming tycoon's son in incest scandal. Leaked, no doubt, by Lydia's gossip mill at the Bridge Club. Paparazzi swarmed Pacific Street, lenses glinting like vulture eyes, shouting, Brandon, was it true? Lover or son? He slammed the blinds, heart a war drum, but the journal became his Bible, Elijah's words a lifeline in the storm. He'd always known their bond was unconventional. Elijah, the widower who'd raised him solo after Mom's car wreck on the BQE, pouring concrete hard love into a kid who sketched drag queens in secret notebooks. Brandon's coming out at 17 hadn't shattered them. It deepened the trench. Elijah's gruff, ain't my business who you love, masking a mirror to his own shadows. Art school at Pratt followed. Brandon's days lost in charcoal portraits of leather-clad men at the Stonewall Inn. Nights crashing on Elijah's couch with takeout lo mein. Success came slow. A mural commission for a Chelsea gallery, then freelance gigs illustrating queer lit covers, but Elijah was there, front row at openings, bellowing laughs that drowned out the snickers. The cabin changed the map. Post-kiss. The air crackled with electricity. Every family dinner a minefield of brushed knees under the table. Elijah fought it, drowning in work, warehouses from Red Hook to Williamsburg, barking orders into flip phones, while Brandon dated safe betas, guys like Theo who faded fast. But the pull was magnetic. A business trip to Chicago in 23 became their first full surrender. Elijah booked a suite at the Palmer House, pretext a client meet, and Brandon flew out for the weekend. The door clicked shut, and they collided, Elijah's hands, rough from hauling crates, gentle on Brandon's hips as they stripped in the marble bathroom, steam rising like desire. This is us, Elijah murmured against his neck, water cascading as they knelt, mouths exploring with a hunger honed by years of denial. It was romantic, raw, Elijah tracing tattoos on Brandon's back, whispering poetry cribbed from Ferlinghetti, their bodies syncing like jazz solos. Back in New York, secrecy became their lover. Code words and texts, need you at the site, meant motels in Queens, where they'd lose hours in tangled sheets, Elijah's growls softening to sighs. Your poetry, Bran, he'd say, fingers carding through sweat-damp hair. But cracks showed. Elijah's health dipping, a cough that lingered after flu season, ignored for stolen nights. Diagnosis came mid-25, a routine checkup turning nightmare. Cancer, the doc said flatly, and Elijah's empire crumbled inward. Brandon quit his gig at a Soho ad agency to care for him, the brownstone a cocoon of 4 drips and VHS reruns of Casablanca. Love deepened in the quiet, Elijah sketching Brandon asleep, frail hands steady, Brandon reading Whitman aloud, voice cracking on, "I sing the body electric." The journal captured it. March 10th, 2025. Pain's a thief, but his touch gives it back twofold. Betrayed my bloodline, but gained a soulmate. Betrayal echoed there too. Not just families, but Elijah's own. Entries confessed wartime flings suppressed. A 90s affair with a dockworker ended in blackmail. "I hurt you by waiting too long," one page wept. Brandon forgave in the reading, but the contest dragged it raw again. Ray's lawyers subpoenaed the journal, claiming coercion. Lydia testified tearfully about Elijah's declining faculties, painting him as a mad king. Court dates in Foley Square loomed like guillotines, Brandon facing cross-exams that pried into their bed like voyeurs. One rainy afternoon, holed up in the study amid stacks of depositions, Brandon found a letter tucked in the journal's back. A yellowed envelope addressed to "My Dearest B," postmarked 02. From Elijah's Navy days? No, inside, a confession from Mom, written weeks before her crash. "Elijah, if you're reading this, know I suspected. The way you look at him growing up, it's more than pride. If it's love, embrace it. Life's too short for cages. Tell Brandon I adored him." Tears soaked the paper. She'd known, silently blessing what society damned. Humanistic grace in ink, a bridge across the chasm. Emboldened, Brandon hired a pro bono queer rights attorney from Lambda Legal, Javier, sharp as a stiletto in his pinstripe suit. "We've got the video. The journal. It's ironclad," Javier said over dim sum in Chinatown, steam rising from soup dumplings like hope. But the opposition dug dirt. Ray unearthed Brandon's old Grindr chats, twisting them into predatory narratives. Lydia shopped stories to TMZ about incestuous delusions. The climax brewed in a sweltering July hearing. Courtroom packed with gawkers. Judge a stern woman with a Brooklyn accent. Ray took the stand, oily charm on full. "Elijah was my brother, but that boy manipulated him, cancer brain. Vulnerable." Brandon's turn came, palms slick as he swore in. "He wasn't manipulated," he said, voice steady, journal open like evidence. "He chose me. We chose each other." Gasps rippled. The judge banged her gavel. "Order," but Javier pounced, cueing the video on a laptop for the court. Elijah's face loomed, words pouring. "Bran, you're my heart. The dollar's a symbol, start small. Build empires of love." The room hushed, even Ray wilting as Elijah detailed the betrayals, not just financial schemes, but emotional. Lydia abandoning him post-divorce. Ray ghosting during chemo. "You left me to die alone," Elijah accused. But Brandon stayed. The judge adjourned, eyes misty, and whispers followed Brandon out. That was powerful. Media spun it, CNN calling it a father's forbidden legacy. And public tide turned, Elijah's dollar trending with rainbow flags. Yet victory tasted bittersweet. Without Elijah, the brownstone echoed hollow. Nights, Brandon wandered the halls, tracing fingerprints on walls, making love to ghosts in the bed where they'd last tangled. Elijah's scent faint on the pillows. Romance lingered in memories. a Valentine's 24 escape to Key West, driving the Chevy convertible down the overseas highway, wind whipping as they parked at sunset, bodies joining on a blanket under stars, ocean roaring approval. Forever, Elijah had vowed, ring from a dive shop, cheap silver, but eternal. Fall brought the ruling, will upheld, Brandon sole executor, family cut to crumbs. Ray slunk away to Florida, Lydia to therapy, or so the tabloids claimed. Peace settled, fragile as autumn leaves crunching underfoot in Prospect Park. Brandon started a foundation, Elijah's Legacy, funding queer elder care, workshops on hidden loves. At the launch gala in a Williamsburg loft, strung with Edison bulbs and drag queens belting Judy Garland, he met Alex, tall, with a painter's hands and a laugh like summer thunder. Their first dance was tentative, hands brushing like echoes of the past. But doubt crept. Could he love again without eclipsing Elijah? One crisp October eve, journal in lap on the stoop, Brandon watched kids chase fireflies and whispered to the wind, "You'd want this." The dollar, framed on the mantel, gleamed a beacon. Betrayal's scars faded, replaced by growth's tender shoots. Human connection, messy and profound, wove the fabric of his days. Winter clamped down on Brooklyn like a vice, snow blanketing the brownstone in hush-white forgiveness. But Brandon's world spun on axes of grief and guarded hope. The Foundation's first grant went to a Harlem Senior Center for LGBTQ+ vets. Elijah's Navy ghosts honored in brass plaques. And Brandon poured himself into it. Interviews with silver-haired men sharing tales of lavender marriages and coded glances in foxholes. "Your dad's story cracked me open," one recipient, a wiry ex-Marine named Gus, told him over coffee at a Fort Greene cafe, steam curling like cigarette smoke. "Thought I was the only fool carrying that weight." Alex became a fixture, his loft in Bushwick a riot of half-finished canvases and vinyl-spinning Nina Simone. He was 35, a transplant from Austin with a drawl that melted butter and eyes green as the High Line in spring. Their courtship unfolded slow, deliberate walks along the Gowanus Canal at dusk, hands swinging loose until one night, under a canopy of string lights at a Dumbo art crawl, Alex leaned in. "I've been waiting for you to catch up," he murmured, lips brushing Brandon's in a kiss that tasted of Merlot and possibility. It was different from Elijah's fire, gentler, exploratory, bodies mapping new territories on thrift store sheets, Alex's fingers tracing the journal's faint ink stains on Brandon's skin. Yet shadows loomed. Ray resurfaced in February, a slimy email from a Boca Raton IP. "We'll bury you in appeals, boy." Elijah's shame dies with him. The contest dragged into appeals court, Lydia joining the fray with affidavits from character witnesses, Elijah's old poker buddies, paid off to swear he was always a straight shooter. Betrayal's second wave crested at a deposition in a Tribeca high-rise, fluorescent lights buzzing like angry bees. Ray's attorney, a ferret-faced prick named Sloan, grilled Brandon. "So, you seduced a dying man for his fortune? Convenient timing." "I loved him," Brandon shot back, fists balled under the table. "Every flawed, beautiful inch." Javier objected, but the damage seeped. Headlines twisted anew. Harper Ayres' taboo tango continues. Alex stood firm, cooking pozole on stormy nights, but doubt flickered in his eyes during quiet moments. "You still dream of him?" he'd ask, voice soft as flannel. Brandon nodded. "Honest, every night." "But you're waking me up." Romance bloomed in gestures. Alex sketching Elijah from journal descriptions, a portrait in oils that captured the squint, the strength. Hung in the brownstones' hall, it watched over them like a benevolent specter. Spring thawed the ice, cherry blossoms rioting pink along Eastern Parkway, and the appeals court dropped the hammer. Dismissed, with sanctions on Ray for frivolous claims. Victory Parade was solitary. Brandon at Elijah's grave in Greenwood Cemetery. Green hills rolling under blue skies. Placing the dollar photocopied, original framed, on the headstone etched beloved father, unyielding spirit. We won, Dad, he said, wind rustling oaks like applause. But triumph unearthed deeper conflicts, identities tangle. Was he Elijah's son, lover, or both? Therapy sessions with a queer shrink in Park Slope unpacked it. Freudian knots loosening into self-compassion. You humanized him, the doc said. Now humanize yourself. The Foundation Gala that June exploded into a movement, held at the Brooklyn Museum, under glass ceilings echoing with toasts. Drag icon Peppermint emceed, quipping, Elijah Harper, proof love don't need a trust fund. Brandon spoke, voice steady. He left me $1 and a truth. That truth? Love defies labels, blood, even death. Alex squeezed his hand backstage, their kiss salt-tanged with nerves. Post-speech, donors swarmed, tech bros from Silicon Alley, old guard philanthropists thawing biases. Gus cornered him later, envelope in hand. Elijah's letter to me, from the VFW. He knew your fight was coming. The letter, penned in 24. If Brand's story breaks, tell him I'm proud. We queers build from ruins. Tears pricked. Elijah had networked from the grave, a web of allies woven in whiskey-soaked bars. That night, Alex and Brandon escaped to Coney Island, boardwalk lights flickering like fireflies. They rode the cyclone, screams dissolving into laughter, then wandered the sand, shoes off, waves kissing toes. Marry me? Alex asked, knee in surf, ring glinting, a simple band, engraved always forward. Brandon's yes was a sob, bodies crashing together under the boardwalk's shadow. Love urgent and alive, hips grinding in rhythm with the tide. But climax brewed in summer's heat wave. Ray's final gambit. A leaked audio from Elijah's hospital room, doctored to sound like delirium. Brands. Taking everything. My boy. Sloan pushed for fraud. Court date set for August in steamy Foley Square. The betrayal gutted Brandon. Had Ray bugged the room? Paranoia spiked. Sleep evading as he pored over tapes Javier subpoenaed. Truth emerged in a late-night edit log, Ray's IP stamp. Climax hit in court. AC wheezing like a dying man. Gallery packed with Foundation supporters waving signs. Love's legal. Sloan played the clip. Boos erupted. Javier countered with forensics. Then Elijah's unedited video. Voice booming. Ray, you snake always were. Brand's my heir. Heart and soul. The judge. A burly ex-prosecutor with tattoos peeking from cuffs. Leaned forward. Mr. Harper's testament is clear. Case dismissed permanently. And Mr. Ray, perjury charges pending. Cheers thundered. Ray bolted. Face ashen. Outside. Media frenzy. Microphones thrust. How's it feel to win twice? Brandon, arm around Alex, grinned fierce. Like coming home. That evening, they celebrated at Elijah's old haunt. The Brooklyn diner on Montague, greasy spoons and pie a la mode. Toasts to absent ghosts. Alex's hand warm on his thigh under the Formica table. Fall deepened their bond. Wedding plans sketched on napkins, small. At the cabin, Pine's witnesses. But emotional undercurrents stirred. Brandon's dreams shifted. Elijah fading to advisor, not anchor. One crisp hike in the Adirondacks. Journal tucked in backpack. He read aloud to Alex. Love evolves, like rivers carving canyons. Alex nodded, pausing at a overlook. City lights twinkling distant. He gave you wings, Bran. Fly with me. Their kiss there, mist-kissed, sealed it, romance renewed, humanistic in its grace. Yet the story's heart pulsed in quiet revelations. A box from Lydia arrived, postmarked Hamptons. Apology letter, tear-stained. I was scared, like him. Forgive, Brandon did, mailing back a foundation invite. Humaneness won. Bridges rebuilt, not burned. As leaves turned, Brandon stood on the brownstone stoop, Alex's ring catching sun, and felt Elijah's whisper, live loud. The dollar gleamed inside, symbol eternal. Autumn's palette bled into winter's monochrome, the brownstone aglow with fairy lights for their engagement party. A low-key affair in the garden, strung with lanterns and heaters warding off the chill. Guests mingled. Foundation board members swapping stories of hidden histories. Alex's artsy crew from Bushwick blasting indie folk from Bluetooth speakers. Gus holding court with war yarns softened by eggnog. Brandon, in a cashmere sweater Alex called his color, circulated with a glow that felt foreign yet fitting, happiness, untainted. Lydia showed, tentative in pearls and a tentative smile, hugging him stiffly. He's watching, you know, she whispered, eyes on the stars. Proud, the wedding loomed in June, cabin-bound, but conflict simmered beneath the joy. Elijah's shadow, benevolent but burdensome. Therapy unearthed it, imposter syndrome. Brandon confessing, what if I'm just his echo? Alex deserves original. The doc leaned back, glasses perched. He made you whole. Now compose your symphony. Alex helped. 2 nights painting together in the loft. Brandon's watercolors bleeding into Alex's oils. Bodies following suit on drop cloths. Paint smeared and laughing. You're the melody, Alex breathed. Thrust slow and deep. I'm just the bass line. Romance flowered in domesticity. Grocery runs to the Atlantic Avenue Bazaar. Haggling over heirloom tomatoes. Lazy Sundays binging Queer as Folk reruns. Debating plot twists till dawn. Ray's reckoning came swift. Arraigned on fraud in federal court. His plea deal spilling lesser sins. Skimming not just Elijah's, but cousins' trusts. Tabloids feasted. Harper empire crumbles. Brothers' betrayal bites back. But Brandon tuned it out. Focusing on vows drafted in the study. Journal open for inspiration. In shadows we found light, he wrote. In taboos, truth. The foundation thrived. Second gala at MoMA drawing celebs. Neil Patrick Harris toasting. To dollars that buy dignity. Grants flowed to rural queer youth programs. Echoing Elijah's Hell's Kitchen roots. Climax redux struck in April. A bombshell from Hargrove. Unrecorded codicil. Elijah's doing. Tucked in a safety deposit box. Forgotten amid the chaos. The lawyer said over lunch at Delmonico's. Steak tartare untouched. It named Brandon not just heir, but guardian of a trust. $5 million for personal pursuits. Earmarked for art, travel, legacy. But strings. A clause voiding if love falters. Elijah's paranoia peeking through. He worried you'd settle, Hargrove explained. Betrayal's ghost. Elijah doubting they're forever? Brandon stormed the cemetery, ranting at Granite. You think I'd bail? After everything. Alex found him there. Picnic basket in hand, BLTs and craft IPAs. Absurdly normal. He was human, babe. Flawed like us. They ate cross-legged on grass. Alex's head on Brandon's shoulder. And forgiveness flowed easy. Let's use it for the cabin, renovate. Make it ours. Romance reignited that night. Back home. Slow undress by fireplace. Elijah's portrait watching benign as they moved on the rug. Gasps sinking with crackling logs. I choose you, Brandon vowed. Climax crashing like waves. Bodies arching in unison. Spring wedding day dawned misty. Adirondacks shrouded in fog lifting to blue. Guests arrived in Volvos and Subarus, 50 strong. A queer quilt of friends. Family redeemed. Lydia walked Brandon down the improvised aisle of pine needles. Arm loop tentative. He'd approve, she murmured. Alex waited at the dock. In linen suit, eyes shining. Vows exchanged under a chupper of branches. Brandon's voice steady. You woke me from grief's dream. Alex's drawl thick. We're the story now. Rings slipped on. Alex's simple gold. Brandon's etched with a $sign. Wink to the past. Kiss sealed it. Cheers erupting. Then feast. Barbecue ribs smoked lakeside. Craft beers flowing. Drag quartet belting at last. Honeymoon whispered next. Road trip down Route 66. Chevy restored. Top down. They chased sunsets from Chicago jazz dives to Grand Canyon rims. Bodies loving under motel neon. Albuquerque. Tangled in adobe sheets. Flagstaff. Stargazing turning carnal. This is freedom, Alex panted. Hips rolling lazy. Brandon agreed. Elijah's journal along for readings at diners. Words blending into their narrative. Back east. Life layered. Foundation expanded to podcasts. Dollar truths. Elders sharing closets cracked open. Brandon's art surged. Exhibit at the Whitney. Portraits of forbidden loves. Elijah's face central. Titled $1 worth. But humanistic depths plumbed in quiet. Lydia's visit. Post-rehab. Confessing her own buried bisexuality. A 70s fling with a sorority sister. Elijah knew, protected me. Tears shared over tea. Forgiveness a bomb. Ray, prison mail arrived. Contrite scrawl. Saw the light. Kid. Make it count. Brandon replied. Neutral, humanity's arc bent. Not broken. Summer's end brought pregnancy talk. No. Adoption dreams. Sifting profiles of kids needing homes like they once did. Our legacy, Alex said. Curled on the couch. Romance matured. Anniversaries marked with tattoos. Matching coordinates of the cabin. Elijah's influence waned to wisdom, not weight. As leaves fell again, Brandon stood on the bridge over the East River. Wind whipping, Alex beside. We made it, he said. Dollar's memory warm in pocket. Love's empire. Built not on fortunes, but fortitude. The second winter wrapped the brownstone in crystalline hush. But inside, life thrummed with the pulse of new beginnings. A nursery half-painted in soft blues. Crib assembled crooked by Alex's eager hands. Adoption papers shuffled through agencies. Profiles blurring into hopes. A boy from foster care in the Bronx. 5 years old with curls and wary eyes. Named Luca. He looks like you squinting at canvases, Alex teased over pancakes, syrup sticky on chins. Brandon laughed. Syrup sweet, but pangs hit. Elijah's empty chair at future tables. The grandfather Luca would never grill burgers with. Foundation work intensified. Dollar Truths podcast topping queer charts. Episodes dissecting betrayals turned triumphs. A Texas rancher outing his preacher dad. A Silicon Valley exec funding trans shelters from closet cash. Brandon guested. Voice raw. Loves the ultimate inheritance. Listeners flooded inboxes. Your story saved my marriage. My coming out. Human connections spiderwebbed. Weaving isolation into community. Lydia volunteered. Her bridge club disbanded for sensitivity trainings. Redemption's quiet work. Romance with Alex deepened into comfortable fire. Mornings tangled in sheets. Coffee breaths mingling. Evenings sketching by the fire. Alex's brush on canvas mirroring touches on skin. One Valentine's. Snow blanketing the garden. They renewed vows impromptu. Through betrayals and beyond. Alex murmured. Ring finger traced. Bodies followed to the master bed. Slow and sacred. Climaxes whispered promises. But conflict stirred subtle. Luca's file arrived. Backstory heavy. A runaway dad. Mom's overdose. Can we heal him like Elijah healed us? Brandon fretted, pacing the study. Alex pulled him down. We're not fixing, we're family. Spring bloomed frantic, home study visits. Agency meets in midtown cubicles smelling of bureaucracy. Climax crested in May. Call at dawn. Luca's yours, provisional. But yes, court finalization in family court. Bronx was anticlimax. Judge smiling. Welcome home, little man. Luca arrived wide-eyed, clutching a stuffed T-Rex. Brownstone suddenly alive with small feet pattering. Crayon murals on fridge doors. Nights rocked with lullabies. Elijah's journal read as bedtime stories. Sanitized, but spirit intact. Once, a brave man left a treasure. Betrayal's echoes faded. But one last ripple. Ray's release. Parole in June. Letter enclosed. Visiting New York. Coffee? Brandon hesitated. Alex's hand steadying. They met at a neutral Starbucks in Flatbush. Ray gaunt. Tattoos faded. Eyes humbled. I was poison, he admitted over lattes. Voice cracking. Elijah forgave worse in me. No hugs, but a nod. Start over. Foundation needs accountants. Redemption's thread pulled taut. Ray signed on pro bono. Numbers crunching for good. Summer idle at the cabin. Luca splashing in the lake. Alex teaching casts. Brandon grilling like Elijah. Smoke curling heavenward. Evenings. Fire pit stories. Luca rapped at tales of Grandpa's dollar magic. Romance intertwined. Stolen kisses while Luca napped. Bodies joining in the loft. Quiet to not wake dreams. Our empire, Alex sighed. Spent and sated. Fall brought the trilogies close. Whitney exhibit extension. Gala at the Met. Elijah's portrait lone centerpiece. Toasts rang. To hidden loves. Revealed. Lydia danced with Gus. Improbable pair. Ray tallied donations. Ledger balanced. Luca, in tiny tucks, tugged Brandon. Daddy, tell the dollar story. Under chandeliers. He did hook. Line. Truth. Crowd hushed. Then applauding thunder. Years folded forward. Luca at 10. Sketching queers like his dad's. Foundation Global. Chapters in L.A. London. Alex's gallery show. Brandon curating. Their love, bedrock. Elijah's grave visited yearly. Dollar fresh each time. We lived loud. Dead. In the end, humanistic grace prevailed. Not erasure of pain, but alchemy. Betrayal to bond. Taboo to testament. On a Brooklyn stoop at dusk, Brandon held Alex's hand. Luca between. City humming. $1 started it, he murmured. Love finished. The skyline nodded. Speechless no more.